Okay, well, last week we started off in this book by Timothy Keller called The Skeptical Student. Now, hopefully, you've read through this short booklet and also John chapter 1. That was the homework we had last week. And so let's start there in John chapter 1 and let's read to get started for today. It says, "The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and he said, 'Follow me.' And so Philip found Nathanael and he said to him, 'We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph.' And Nathanael said to him, 'Can anything good come out of Nazareth?' And Philip replied, 'Come and see.'" Let's get to the book. Keller writes, "I want you to notice three very important aspects of Nathanael's encounter with Jesus: Nathanael's problem, Nathanael's need, and Nathanael's prescription." So that's what we're going to do in these three videos as we finish this booklet together. So first, let's look at his problem. Nathanael is at least an intellectual snob and maybe even a bigot, Keller notes. Nathanael sneers Nazareth. Everybody from Jerusalem looked down on people from Galilee. Now, Nathanael couldn't believe that somebody from a place like Nazareth had the answers to the big questions of our time. And maybe you can relate. If you have this view of Christianity or know someone who has this view of Christianity, that's no surprise. Many people today view Christianity much like Nathanael viewed Nazareth. Keller writes that the knowing people, the suitable people all say, "Christianity, been there, done that. I grew up with it. I realized early on it's not for me, and I've made up my mind." And maybe that's how you feel if you're going through this with a friend or in a group. Maybe you feel like, yeah, that's me. That's pretty descriptive of me. I'm skeptical, whether you grew up in a Christian or religious faith at all, or whether you've just always steered clear of it. Maybe you feel a little bit like Nathanael does. Well, the author has two suggestions for you. The first one, he says, is that this kind of dismissiveness is always deadly. It absolutely kills all creativity and problem solving, not to mention any hope of a relationship. Maybe you've experienced that in other relationships. The author talks about how that works in marriage a lot of times. But then he says that the second issue is more substantial. He says, by despising Christianity, you sever the living taproot to what you're probably more, or what are probably many of our own core values. And we talked about this in the first lesson quite a bit. Foundational to our contemporary consciousness, as non-Christian philosopher Luke Ferry points out, is the concept that every single human being, regardless of talent or wealth or race or gender, is made in God's personal image and therefore has dignity and rights. And this is just foundational to the way we think about right and wrong. The author has already given several examples, but another example, take it for granted today, that came from the Bible, is that we should take care of the poor. And this is a concept that is definitely biblical and Christian. And Keller traces this in the story of the Bible. He talks a little bit about the widespread practice of primogeniture, which is in Genesis and in ancient cultures, the eldest son inherited all the wealth, and yet time after time, God chooses not the oldest in the story of the Old Testament, if you know it. He doesn't choose the one the world expects and rewards. Never the one from Jerusalem, as it were, but always the one from Nazareth. And we see that in this story again. This is just how God works. Now, you might be thinking how nice and uplifting this part of Christianity is. God loves underdogs, but maybe it doesn't want to make you follow Jesus. But Keller goes deeper with the point. He says, the heart of the unique message of the Bible is that the transcendent, immortal God came to earth himself and became weak, vulnerable to suffering and death. This is the story of Jesus coming to the cross. The author says there could be no stronger basis and dynamic motivation for the revolutionary Christian ethical concepts that attract us and are at the root of our society even today. So he says this: the essence of what makes Christianity different from every other religion and form of thought is this. Every other religion says if you want to find God, if you want to improve yourself, if you want to have a higher consciousness, if you want to connect with the divine, however it's defined, you have to do this and that. You have to gather your strength, you have to keep the rules, you have to free your mind, and then you have to fill your mind, and you have to be above average. And every other religion or human philosophy says that if you want to make the world right, you make yourself right, and then summon all your reason and all your strength and live in this way. But Christianity says the exact opposite. Every other religion says, here are the answers to the big questions, but Christianity says Jesus is the answer to them all. The very genius of Christianity is that it's not about, here's what you have to do to find God. Christianity is about God coming to earth in the form of Jesus Christ, dying on the cross to find you. That is the truly radical and unique truth that Christianity has contributed to the world. It's because Christianity isn't about a religion or a set of rules. It's about a person. It's about who Jesus is and what he showed to us and who he was for us. And the author says this, and this is how we'll stop this video for now. Now I ask you, if you concede the source of many of your convictions, then why embrace one part of the Christian teaching without accepting the other part that explains it and makes it coherent? Do not be like Nathaniel. In other words, he's talking about why embrace the values that we get from the Bible without embracing where those values come from, the person and work of Jesus Christ. Why don't you hit pause right now before you go on to the second video and talk a little bit about this and what you think about all this stuff.